Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. If you recognize where we are, then you know what we're about to do, and what kind of episode this will be. We haven't used our campfire here on the mountain much since we built it, and only once since the trees have grown. I thought it would be a good way to say farewell, at least for now, to Lupine Ridge. Let's settle in around the campfire, heat up our mugs, and listen to some more stories and letters from ages past, while we close our eyes and reminisce about Lupine Ridge. We'll take these memories with us, so that no matter where we may roam, we will always carry a piece of home with us. Let's get started. Our first reading is from the story Blind Bat Rickard. Now, we don't have the entire story. We have about 5 pages of it, which I think is 6 of 8 of the total number of scrolls there are to find. Here it goes. Never go into the caves. Never go under the ground. Haven't you heard the story of Blind Bat Rickard? He was a young boy, just like you lot. Curious, rambunctious, and ready for adventure. Some say he was born in one of the villages around here. Well, there wasn't much to do in the fields for a boy like that. He couldn't be bothered with tilling the soil or gathering wheat. One year, as it came to be harvest season, he decided to slip away while everyone else was working. He knew his father would be furious, but Rickard was a greedy boy, and he wanted his adventure. After a long day of traipsing through the heath and forest, young Rickard had had a great deal of fun, and now the wrath of his father was clear in his mind. He was terrified of going home, so he decided he would stay out for the night, and give his father time to calm down and worry about him. He wasn't very bright, but he wasn't very stupid either. He at least knew better than to be caught roaming about at night. By the time the sun was almost gone, he had stumbled upon a deep, well-hidden cave, and decided he would pass the night there. Well, the sun went down, and he had himself a nice fire built, just near the mouth of the cave. He was safe and hidden there, but the rocky floor was uncomfortable, and Rickard was bored of sitting around. So, he decided to play a little game with himself. He would walk into the cave's darkness and see which gave out first, his courage or the cave. So he started walking deeper into the cave, brushing up all the warnings his parents and elders had given him since he was born. They had always told him that there were dark things under the earth, darker even than the monsters we see at night. Rickard was scared, for sure, but that was all the more thrilling for him. He felt himself just getting into the real adventure as he took one step and then another, deeper and deeper. His heart beat like a drum on festival night, but he kept going. He was giggling now, thinking how much fun he was having. He was sure it was all just a silly jaunt, but the images of torn flesh, long hairy limbs, and scraping metal started to fill his head. He could hear his grandmother's ragged voice as he remembered all the old stories she'd told him about the drifters and horrible groundlings. On the verge of giving up and running, he bumped headfirst into the cave wall. He'd made it to the end. He breathed a sigh of relief, did a small jig to celebrate his victory, and turned to walk back to his warm fire. Only, when he took his first step back, the ground gave out beneath him. He fell and fell through the earth, scraping and tearing his skin all the way down. When he finally came to stop and got a chance to right himself, he was far below the little cave where he had started. Now, young, foolish Rickard had only one thing in mind. He wanted to get home as quickly as he could. That being said, he couldn't see anything in the immense darkness, and he was so disoriented from the fall that he wasn't quite sure which way he'd come from. All he could tell was that he had landed in a large cavern, and that he could only figure out by the echoing sounds of the rocks sliding after him. So he started feeling his way around, looking for something, anything, to give him some direction. His hands found a rock face, but something was strange about it. The rock was smooth to the touch. He followed it for a couple feet and realized it formed an entire wall of smooth, even rock. There was some kind of wall here, carved into the earth. Having no other option, Rickard held his hand to the wall and used it as a guide, walking alongside it, but it led him deeper into the cavern. He followed it for a while, until it suddenly fell away, and Rickard lost his balance, stumbling to the ground. He stood up and decided not to risk venturing further. He held onto the wall again and tried to walk back to the place where he had thought he'd fallen through the dirt. Only, after walking a good distance, he found himself somehow further into the cavern, judging by the sound of his footsteps. In his confusion, he reached out into the open darkness beyond the wall, and felt his hands touching another strange, carved stone wall. He realized suddenly that this was some kind of maze, full of walls in the same shape and design. He must have latched onto the wrong wall after falling onto the ground. That was all we have for Blind Bat Rickard. We have a couple more pages to find, and we'll fill those in as we can. But poor Rickard, just a boy wanted to have some fun, and ended up with more than he bargained for. Maybe he should have listened to his elders. Our next journal entry is from Brief Discussions with the Traveler. I think we have 3 of the 4 parts of this, and this one is rather long, and it is in the form of a play. We begin with Act 1, Scene 1, a large study filled with charters and packaging. Odwin at his desk, working intently. Enter Traveler suddenly. Traveler observes Odwin and his study for a few moments. Odwin has not noticed him. Traveler: I can see you spent quite a lot of time here. Odwin, startled: What? Who? See here now, who's there? Who stands before me? If you've no appointment, begone from my office. I have no time for the rabble. Traveler: I wonder if you might reconsider. How different are you from them when your worth is weighed in full? Odwin: I can't understand what you mean. Just look out there. Look at the people digging for worms, digging for carrots and iron. I've risen above that, through my own work. Why be a grub when you could be a lion? What does it matter if they suffer as a result? The lion does not cry over its meal. Traveler: Perhaps you're right, sir, though I cannot but hope for otherwise. What a cruel world you paint yourself in. I wonder, what will you do when a greater lion comes hungry for you? Indeed, he will not cry for you. Must he then cry alone at the end? Odwin: What sentiment is this? We are alone from the beginning. Should I encounter an overwhelming foe, it is my own weakness that I have to blame. Exit Traveler suddenly, and Odwin continues. Of course no one will wait for me. Ah, but he's already gone. Exeunt. Act 2, Scene 1. A broad forest. Cassia stands low, bow in hand. She spies her target and pulls the bowstring taut. Enter Traveler suddenly, directly in front of Cassia. Cassia: Ha! It is the merry vagabond himself. I near mistook you for a stag. Traveler: There's merit, perhaps, in such a thought, though I would not make so fine a meal. You seem at ease, huntress. Are you not shocked at my arrival? Cassia: Mine eyes have seen much and more that make your magic a paltry show. Truly, what is one strange man when compared to the strangeness of this shifting, monstrous world? I have seen bone fall off skin, and time turn sideways. I confess those sights alone now hold merit for such cries. Traveler: For a moment I questioned your solitude. I see now why you walk upon this track. For shame, I have been foolish. It is agreeable, yes, to roam the forests and see the shadow of our canopy, but you mustn't forget this. It is only by the grace of light that you may bear witness to any matter. We are all blind fools without it, stumbling quietly from place to place, just as I do. Cassia: Perhaps I have judged you in haste. You hold a fair measure of wit, though your badgering carries the weight of this argument. Act 3. No directions. Wire. It would be ages better to be a man of money. I could hold my own keep, and thenceforth demand whatever good I may desire. Should I seek a fine supper? Why, I'd simply ring a bell, and in brief time a roasted duck would appear before me. Or perhaps a horse. Readily. They'd fly over fields to carry my saddle. And if my demands were not filled forthwith, I would seek myself a rough crowd, such as the one I am truly given to, and ask these villains to find their own bells to ring. Traveler: Clever fellow! Your kind is familiar to me. My eyes can see the toils of your mind as clearly as the toils of your hands. Your head is as fallow as your field. Wire: Away with that! My intent I have already made known. There will be no tilling till the fill of coin is mine to feel. In meantime, I'll keep to the byways and start my fortune from the shares of the old merchants. If I must contend with the drifters in my home, then I shall rival them on the roads. Traveler. Come now, look at this earth. Can you not see the life under the surface? Look! Look! There lies a secret hold for you. There is a future here beyond your dismay. Though you must work, you wield the strength to make mountains. A seed, planted in patience, will take root and grow tall, taller than your worrying. That is the gift, the grand citadel of the humble farmer. Wire. Oh, is that so? I should like to see you try it sometime. I wonder how your own hands might fare under weight of scythe and rake. Traveler. Believe me, dear man, I have toiled much, and still I see the fruits of my work laid out before me. Exeunt. That is it for brief discussions with the Traveler. Interesting little play. We have one more piece to find. I wonder who our Traveler is going to dig into next. But we'll perhaps see in the future. Our next reading is from The Morning. Gather round, gather round. This is a story to get you through the long, cold night when it comes for you, like it has this night for us. Do you think we were the first to feel the cold? The first to see the ghosts wandering through the night? No. This has been happening since my grandfather's era, since the time before that. I'll tell you about when it began. When Bearfirth, the first of us, saw the protector light go dim and realized she was not alone in the forests. There was a time before this one, when the world was dark. There was nothing out there. No light, no trees, no birds and no music. What horror! A great miasma of nothingness. Can you imagine such a place? Through this emptiness a woman crawled, alone, starving, lost. She only knew suffering, only knew pain and grief, but she continued living because she did not know any other path. One day she dreamt of great storms, trembling earth, turning wheels, and she woke to a new world. One of vibrance, of light, and beautiful green. Here now were the birds and beasts, the fruit and grains, the winding rivers and the great horn mountains. Where before there was nothing, now there was wonder all around. She was the first to walk our world, our home. Thus she came to know joy. But when the sun left the sky and the night fell over the new land, she heard whispers, the groans, the crunching footsteps of those abominable shades that haunt us still. She then came to know fear, and a dreadful fear it was. She fled into the dirt and the quiet places. Deeper down she went, hounded by the foul voices, until she came upon something hidden and strange. There in the dark, she found herself in the presence of a god. And so the first trade was conducted. The god granted her a madness, the madness to keep struggling in the face of fear. In exchange, she swore fealty to it. She swore to never forget what the god taught her. Then she climbed. She returned to the surface, and in her madness she fought the monsters that harrowed her. For 12 years she fought. Every day she would rest and enjoy the bountiful wonders of this world, and every night she would rise and battle the creatures that came to hunt her. She felled hundreds of them, yet they always returned. As time passed by, she grew wise. Climbing to the highest mountains, she called out, in a clear voice that rang through the dales. She called, "I am Bearfirth. I am mighty. If you hear my voice, come find me. Come look for me in the plains, in the forests, by the rivers. Find me, and you too will be mighty." And her voice was heard. Other men and women appeared, those who had been hiding in the dirt and the roots, in the gray shadows. They heard her voice and were entranced. They followed it to the source and came together as a crowd before her. They were fearful and hungry. Now comes the second trade. She offered them wisdom in exchange for strength. The people, desperate for guidance, agreed to the deal. Working together, Bearfirth and her companions built the first home. These walls were made from only mud and stone, but the ghosts had not the power to overcome them when the sun left the sky. The people rejoiced when they saw this, but Bearfirth, upon realizing she would not have to battle anything that night, felt the years and years of exhaustion, once held back through willpower, now fall upon her as a flood. Collapsing to the ground, she knew that her life was at its end. The people gathered round her, fearful and lost again at the thought of her leave-taking. They think they will have to return to the dirt and roots if she is gone. They think she pulls the morning into the sky. Seeing this, she makes the third trade, the final trade. She asks of them, "Survive this night. Stay watchful. Do not give up yet. Do this for me, and my strength will be yours." People are hesitant, but they bind themselves to the trade. They keep watch. The shades scream and roar at them. Can you hear them? They're still out there, screaming at us now. But her people do not run. They have an oath to fulfill. They build the walls stronger, and trust that Bearfirth will hold up her end of the bargain. When the sun finally returns, it finds them proud and cheering. At least they know the madness that Bearfirth knew. They learned that by fighting in the face of hopelessness, they could accomplish anything. With their newfound strength, they worked together and made a grand village. They spread to distant lands, making villages and helping those in hiding there. And always, they remembered that long night and the sunrise that came afterwards. Well, everyone, how was your tea? How was your coffee? How was your hot chocolate? As night draws on, it's now time for us to make our way to our beds, to our tents, and make sure they're closed against the horrors that lurk outside. I hope you enjoyed our little reading of some of the lore that we've gathered. We have a little bit more, but it's sort of in little bits and pieces, so we will wait until we have a bit more of at least a couple of them before we continue our readings. And next time we do, I suspect we'll be somewhere in the deep south, somewhere warmer, where we can do this any time of the year. Anyway, that is about all we have time for in this episode of the Vintage Story Guide. I hope you're looking forward to moving south as much as I am, and in the next episode we're going to start our journey and see how far we can get. We may not find our home in the next episode, but we should at least get down to the general area and general climate that we want to be in. If you have any AMA questions you'd like me to answer in a video like this one, drop them in a comment with the hashtag 20questions. And if you play computer games and want to support the channel, consider using my partner link next time you're shopping on the Humble Store, on screen now, and in the description below. Anyway, as always, my name has been Corazar. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.